Welcome to the 2020 Virtual General Assembly. We're ready to come together.
Come together right now over me.
עוד יש מפרש לבן באופק מול ענן שחור כבד, כל שנבקש לו יהי. ואם בחלונות הערב אור נרות החג מורד, כל שנבקש לו יהי. לו יהי, לו יהי, אנא לו יהי, כל שנבקש לו יהי. לו יהי, לו יהי, אנא לו יהי, כל שנבקש לו יהי.
Come together right now over me. And when the broken-hearted people living in the world agree, there will be an answer, let it be. For though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. Oh, let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be.
לו יהי, אנא לו יהי.
Come together right now. Come together right now. Oh, come together right now over me.
And now, joining us from Los Angeles, California, the chair of the Jewish Together Plenary, Julie Platt.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Jewish Together. It is thrilling to be here with this many of you from virtually every corner of our shared Jewish world. Thank you for joining us for the first ever virtual General Assembly of the Jewish Federations of North America. And a special thank you to the Maccabees for helping us get started in such a beautiful way. I also want to take a moment to thank our Jewish Together Plenary Committee, comprised of representatives from the Emergency Pandemic Coalition, which you will hear more about throughout our time together today. Over the next hour, we'll have the chance to tap our toes to more great music, and we'll also be inspired by some of our community's most notable leaders. And most of all, we'll be inspired by each other. We'll learn about the work that we have done in our Jewish communities over the past 8 months to meet the unprecedented challenges brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll take a thorough look at what we've accomplished and how we came together, collaborated across localities, religious streams, ideological and cultural differences in all our rich diversity to innovate and implement solutions for issues unlike any we have ever faced before. We'll also examine what our pain points were, where we could have done better, and how we can take what we've learned and apply it to the challenges that lay ahead. Because, as we all know, there's a lot of relief and recovery work still yet to be done. Based on our ability to come together and respond to the growing needs of our Jewish communities at home and overseas, I am confident that we can achieve anything. And for that, we must thank the leaders of our Jewish communal organizations and institutions across the continent. Let's take a moment to hear from some of them about what being Jewish together really means.
When I think of Jewish Together, I think about our desire as a Jewish community to stay connected across all bounds.
To me, Jewish Together is about the places we gather to mourn, to pray, to learn, to celebrate.
Jewish Together is about people,
community,
our professionals,
that we share a common history.
Jewish Together is about action
in times of joy and in times of crisis.
It means starting my day on the phone with a teen from Ukraine and ending my day on the phone with a teen from the West Coast.
Means a coalition of like minds.
Jewish Together means fostering unity through our shared Jewish identity.
Being part of a worldwide Jewish global community, so that every Jew feels welcome.
When I think of Jewish Together, I think about the incredible resilience and creativity of our community.
I think about our children, our day school students, who are the Jewish future.
Being Jewish Together is so important because we want to look back on this moment and say with pride that we showed up and lived our Jewish values.
Being Jewish Together is so important because when we are united, we have the power to positively transform ourselves, our communities, and our world.
Being Jewish Together is about coming together to make this world more peaceful.
Because the richness and capability of our community is only as good as we work together.
The future strength of our Jewish community depends upon it.
This is the community that can nurture us.
If it weren't for all the people that we meet and the connections that we make and all of the moments that we were able to be Jewish together, we wouldn't be the people that we are today.
At the end of the day, Jewish Together is all about coming together and making this world a more just place.
A more connected place.
A more caring,
compassionate,
sacred, secure,
betterly Jewish educated place.
A better place for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being Jewish together.
With us.
Please welcome the chair of the Jewish Federations of North America, Mark Wilf.
I'm inspired by this gathering. This is an extraordinary time for our Jewish community, a time of great transition, a time of urgent challenges, and also a time of enormous opportunities. I've been privileged to meet with the leadership of our Jewish world, from our federations and overseas partners, to the Emergency Pandemic Coalition and its roundtable, the Israel Travel Alliance, and other partners in our work, and watch their networks respond to the crisis of the past 8 months. With passion and imagination, our community has delivered hundreds of thousands of meals, provided access to critical protective gear, innovated new pathways to Jewish life, and inspired action related to racial justice and equity. Jewish Together is the manifestation of what is and always should be. And I know, while we have a strong, proud past, the best of our Jewish community has yet to come. How do I know? Because that's the way it's always been. Sadly, we are familiar with experiencing tragedy that fortifies our resilience. Let's now take a moment to remember. Tomorrow, October 27th, will mark 2 years to the day since 11 lives were lost at the Tree of Life attack in Pittsburgh. In memory of the souls of the departed, I ask for a brief moment of silence. Thank you. We will now have the opportunity to look back on these last 8 months as we reflect together, learn, remember, and plan together for our Jewish future.
When the most vulnerable in our community were in trouble, my generation knew we had to step up and pledge to protect them.
With our partners across North America, we mobilized quickly to provide the resources, support, and structure to respond to and protect those in need.
Volunteers with Jewish Family Service are buying groceries and supplies for those survivors of the Holocaust to make sure they have everything they need during this pandemic. And they're also preparing for the upcoming holidays. So volunteers are making sure that the survivors are getting food through the Passover Meals Delivery Program.
Guys, you are saving lives.
Every
you, firefighters, for keeping us safe.
We are living through tremendously challenging times. The toll is already high, and it will grow higher. Even as we look to the future, we have to find ways to mourn the people we lost, the plans we had.
I had lots of aspirations for the second semester of the school year and of 2020 itself. It didn't work out.
We know how to grieve, and we know that we will get through this.
Our local communities have stepped in beautifully. They have creatively transitioned from in-person gatherings to online virtual experiences, such as Shabbat dinners, new parent and baby groups, and Parents' Night Out.
This is a really critical time to give students the best possible experience, whether we can be in person or whether we have to be online.
Changing our schedule and our classes to virtual and in-person learning. We have purchased over 50 flat screen TVs to be placed in all the classrooms, kindergarten through 12th grade, with 2 cameras and microphones.
Dabru Elav, at Kol Divrei Yosef.
Imanu Miskahavlan. Shavua Tov, everyone. Shavua Tov. Thank you so much for joining us. And
The pandemic has led us to reinvent Jewish life in ways large and small.
We've created new tools for individuals, families, and organizations to plan for the uncertain future.
We are finding new ways to connect with our communities.
Happy Trans Day of Visibility.
New ways to live out our Jewish values.
Local teens helping to make a difference.
A group of teens from New York and New Jersey with the Orthodox Union are working with Habitat for Humanity.
After sitting at home for so many months, now finally getting out and helping people, it really makes me feel good inside.
New ways to connect with the world and with Israel.
Say how much I love working for Honeymoon Israel as a queer person.
It's helped with some of the loneliness, feeling like we're in it with couples who also had to postpone their wedding. It's nice being in that together and feeling like we're welcomed and we're celebrated. Happy Pride!
My name is Zohar Aviv, and I'm with the Birthright Israel team here in Israel. Although there is an ocean separating between us, we're all actually in the same boat, all secluded at home, doing our own thing. And actually, I think that this forced seclusion allows us to feel a heightened sense of community and togetherness. The reason that we blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah is because in Torah, in the book of Leviticus, it teaches us that we should have a Yom Teruah, a day of blasts.
Jewish life and our shared values power us through crisis, bringing us together.
We find holiness every day, working toward hope and justice.
Building community with joy.
For us, for all.
We do Jewish together.
Hi, I'm Kareen and I'm Regional President at United Synagogue Youth.
I'm Ari Dworkin-Cantor, a former camper and counselor at Camp Havaya.
I am Neely Fisher and I am the National President at NCSY.
I'm Fletcher Block, the President of NIFTY, the Reformed Jewish Youth Movement.
I'm Emma Rossman and I'm BBYO's International Treasurer.
When I think about what it means to be Jewish together,
I think about our shared Jewish future.
I ask myself, what will it look like?
How will I rise up and lead?
I've been awarded such incredible opportunities.
How will I use that experience to help ensure a brighter Jewish future?
For me,
for the next generation. Today, I stand here in front of you,
our Jewish leaders who have paved the way for the future.
And I commit to you
that I'll protect this gift, this legacy that you've given me.
We commit to making this world a better place.
A world that is in need of so much love and so much healing.
I can see that you need a place to rest your weary head. Lay it on me, I can receive anything you're dealing.
You've been down and turned around by the changing tide. Darkness and fear, give me your tears, anything you're feeling.
And let this moment be enough as the waves crash over us. One step at a time, one step out of time. One step at a time through the dark nights.
El Naef Analan, El Naef Analo, El Naef Anali.
There's so much in this world that's out of our control, it's a mystery. Come and rest your weariness, let it be a healing.
And let this moment be enough as the waves crash over us.
One step at a time, one step out of time. One step at a time through the dark nights.
From Jerusalem, please welcome His Excellency, the President of the State of Israel, Reuven Rivlin.
JFNA leaders, professional and activists from across North America. My dear Mark Wolf, Chair of the Boards of Trustees, Eric Fingerhut, CEO and President, brothers and sisters in Jewish communities around the world, Shalom, to all of you from Jerusalem. The agenda of this General Assembly is come together. Coming together is what families do in times of challenge. The way that the JFNA and local federations have come together to meet the great challenges of Corona and to care for communities, schools, shuls, as we say in Hebrew, Batei Knesset, families and individuals, we will be remembered in the Jewish history as a shining example of the ideal of Kol Yisrael Chaverim, of mutual responsibility. While the pandemic is keeping us physically apart, it has also brought Israel and the global Jewish community closer together. Several years ago, at the General Assembly in Tel Aviv, I said that we need to talk, and even more importantly, we need to listen. Well, I believe that we have become better listening to one another and in supporting one another. The State of Israel today is working with the Jewish communities and organizations around the world to deepen Jewish formal and informal education. We are cooperating in fighting against anti-Semitism and all forms of racism and hate, whether on the streets, online, or in the halls of power. And of course, you continue to provide critical support to the State of Israel on the Capitol Hill, college campuses, and with projects that empower all of the tribes that make up Israeli society. This does not mean that the disagreements, to say the least, between us have disappeared. But I believe, and I believe very strongly, that we will emerge stronger together from this crisis and all crises that we are confronting. We must always remember that the Jewish people do not share common interests, we share a common destiny. Not only interest, it is our mutual destiny. Friends, just as we are working together to tighten the bonds between Israel and the global Jewish community, we are also working together to expand the circle of peace in the Middle East. I know that years of efforts by Jewish leaders played a key role in making the peace between Israel and the UAE and Bahrain possible. I hope and I believe that the historic Abraham Accords can also open the door to new future of trust and cooperation with our Palestinian neighbors as well. Dear friends, dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all that you do to tighten the bonds between Israel and North American Jewry, and to preserve the special bilateral relationship between the State of Israel and the greatest friend and strategic ally, the United States of America. I wish a successful General Assembly and look forward to welcoming you back to Jerusalem. So as we say, next time in Jerusalem, not next year in Jerusalem, next time, and I hope it would be sooner than we think about. All the best, and God bless all of you.
And now, please welcome Eric Fingerhut, the President and CEO of the Jewish Federations of North America.
What a strange time this is. We are in the midst of a global pandemic. Many of our children are not yet back in school, and those that are in school are wearing masks, studying in pods, and having their temperature taken daily before they enter the building. The majority of us are working from home. There was no dancing in the streets on Simchas Torah, In fact, most of us celebrate the high holidays, as we did Pesach and Shavuos, separated from our families and our regular prayer communities. We are still suffering over the loss of loved ones from the virus. We meet in the penultimate week of an unusually contentious election in the United States. The issues are so deeply felt that it is hard, no matter which side we favor, to comprehend what someone on the other side of the political divide is thinking. Racial injustice, anti-Semitism, religious violence, all of these have occupied our days and nights in the past year. And yet, all around us we see stories of resilience, of generosity, of partnership, of amazing collaboration. When our Jewish institutions were forced to shut their doors and the future of our communities seemed in doubt, the entire Jewish world mobilized to care for one another. We didn't check membership rolls. We opened our platforms, our wallets, and rainy day accounts. We asked first, what do you need? And only then did we ask those who were able to help meet the needs of others. We met on Zoom and Microsoft Teams and Google Meets at all hours of the day and night, across dozens of time zones. What have we learned from this? We learned the difference between being unified, which is an absolute necessity in times of crisis, and being uniform, which is something that the Jewish people have not ever been and will never be. We learned that our differences, which loomed so large just a few months ago, have never seemed so small, while our need for each other has never felt so urgent. And we learned that coming together to share information, to plan and to act, makes it possible for us to accomplish great things. This plenary is an outgrowth of the Emergency Pandemic Coalition that has been convening almost weekly on a continental level. It includes the JCC Association, the Foundation for Jewish Camp, BBYO, Moishe House, Hillel International, the denominational movements, Prisma, Leading Edge, Jewish Funders Network, the Network of Jewish Human Services Agencies, and the Association of Jewish Aging Services. Federations across North America have convened similar coalitions in their communities, bringing together synagogues, JCCs, camps, day schools, Hillels, youth groups, human services and aging agencies, and more, to plan and care for their local needs. We have also convened specialized coalitions, the Engagement Roundtable representing the service, community building, education, travel and diversity and inclusion organizations, and a separate Israel Travel Alliance made up of 37 unique organizations that run close to 50 different immersive travel experiences to Israel. And here's the best part. The leaders of each of these organizations are also leaders of their local federations and vice versa. The chair of the Repair the World was the chair of JFNA's Young Leadership Cabinet. The chair of the Foundation for Jewish Camp was the chair of the Los Angeles Federation. The chair of Honeymoon Israel was the chair of JFNA. The chair of San Francisco Federation is the former chair of Moishe House. We are not in silos. We are not in competition. We are in partnership. The spirit of innovation and collaboration went even further. Together, we mobilized and trained volunteers to help all our communal agencies access federal loans and grants totaling well over $500 million. The Jewish Community Response and Impact Fund marshaled $91 million in zero-interest loans and grants to camps, synagogues, JCCs, and more. The Human Services Matching Fund is helping local federations raise $54 million in additional funding to meet the growing demand for services. This is being raised following countless Federation emergency campaigns that collectively raised over $175 million in the first few months of the pandemic to meet the emergency needs of our Jewish communities here and around the world. My friends, what our community needs and wants from us more than ever is exactly what we are doing here today. They want us to be Jewish together. They see us working across organizations and denominations, across philosophical and political lines, and they say, Kol HaKavod, Baruch Hashem, give us more of that. The great rabbi and theologian Abraham Joshua Heschel said that there is only one possible response for the gift of being able to serve, to adore, to fulfill, and that is gratefulness. It is gratefulness, he said, which makes the soul great. So on behalf of the Jewish federations, I extend our deepest gratitude to each and every organization, lay leader, professional, and donor that came together these past few months to lift up our community. And I ask, how can we be of further service to this cause? Last October, I was in a synagogue in Halle, Germany, where the work of the Jewish Agency and others had saved the lives of worshipers on Yom Kippur. This Rosh Hashanah, I was in the United Arab Emirates, where a Muslim country opened its arms wide to its Jewish community and its new normalized relations with the State of Israel. In each case, our communal efforts engaged the great forces of history and made the world a better place. We don't know what the future looks like, but we know that it is ours to help shape. Let us, together, build a future worthy of our time as leaders of these great organizations.
Joining us from different parts of the continent, please welcome Jay Sanderson, Lisa Eisen, Rabbi Elliot Cosgrove, and Paula Pretlow.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am so honored to be sitting here with three extraordinary and thoughtful leaders of our Jewish world. Our communities have done a spectacular job pivoting and reacting to COVID-19 and the immediate issues that it presented to us, including the impact it's had on our most vulnerable. But as we are dealing with this pandemic, it's time really for us to look forward. There will be light at the end of this dark tunnel. And I want us to have a conversation, and I want us to be thinking about what we want our Jewish world to look like when this pandemic is over, however long that is. And so I'm really privileged to have three people who can help us talk about this. I want to start with you, Rabbi Cosgrove. As a rabbi, a spiritual leader, just coming out of the high holidays where synagogues had to think about things differently, what have you learned from this pandemic, and what are you thinking about moving forward about spiritual life and communal life?
Jay, thank you, and it's great to be on this panel with you and with Lisa and with Paula. The high holidays were a thrilling experience in the sense that we engaged with members and non-members at a level that we had never experienced before. We went virtual, we went online, and we were able to create community locally, nationally, and globally. And what it did for us as a synagogue community is it alerted us to the possibilities to rethink all of the assumptions of American Jewish life, how large synagogues like my own interface with other communities, how we resource together, how we think about those who are in need of being served in new models. What does membership mean in this day and age when you're not necessarily defined by your local community? What are the financial models that can sustain both large communities and small communities all at once? Are there opportunities for resources to be shared amongst Jewish communities? I think JFNA is a perfectly positioned organization to think about how local communities can work collaboratively in order to serve a greater good. So I think it was a wow moment, an eye-opening moment, and a moment that we are actively thinking forward how to reconstruct American Jewish life.
Paula, I want to turn to you now, and I want to actually turn to a big part of your background that not everyone probably knows, which is you really come with a very significant business experience. And the Jewish community is based on businesses, and we know that the economy of this country is going to be hard hit for a long time. From a business perspective, and I'll get to your lay side and your communal side afterwards, but from a business perspective, what should we be learning about how we run our Jewish businesses going forward?
I'd like to echo what the rabbi just said. Thank you for having me on this panel. It's a pleasure to be here with Rabbi and with Lisa and you too, Jay. I think we are at an inflection point. We need to think about how our Jewish institutions move forward, how partnerships are formed, how we collaborate, and how to look at each of them individually and collectively as business opportunities. How will we think about innovation? How will we need to pivot? It's definitely not going to be business as usual. And what does that mean? And how do we look out to the future in order to be able to be ahead of the game? Because we're forever changed. And we're at a point where it's not just COVID that has affected our economy. It is the combination of COVID, the effect on the economy, the reckoning of racial injustice in our society. How are we going to think, and not to mention climate change, how are we going to think about all of those things and others as we anticipate moving forward to be able to answer and respond and survive?
Thanks, Paula. Lisa, no foundation that I'm aware of in the Jewish world has really pivoted and led as much as your foundation under your leadership. And I, first of all, want to thank you on behalf of the Jewish world for the work that your foundation has done and that you have personally led. But you are a major stakeholder in this, and your foundation has funded innovation for a long time, and you have done a lot of things. From your prism that you look at things, how are you leading your foundation differently, and how is the foundation thinking differently about the community?
Thanks, Jay, and thanks to the whole JF&A team. It's great to be on this wonderful panel, and I agree with so much of it, what has been said so far. Look, we're looking at this as an opportunity to forge a 21st century Jewish community that's more relevant, more inclusive, and more sustainable. And we see two key pathways that I think will enable all of us to proactively reshape what our community looks like in the future. And one is the boundaries are dissolving. We're seeing what it looks like to not have geographical and institutional, denominational, ideological silos. And it's been exciting. We've had an amazing array of access to local offerings, national and global offerings. We're reaching exponentially more people. And we feel like that is a great leverage point and really important opportunity to create previously unimaginable partnerships that cut across geography, cut across denominations, local and national partnerships, and then multiple types of institutions sharing space and talent and services. So our hope is that when this crisis ends, we will continue to connect and learn and pray across boundaries that will transcend our polarization and that will benefit from the best of what Jewish life can offer. And to that point, one other pathway that I think is really crucial is for us to be thinking, and this is how we've been approaching this moment, preserving our key assets and functions, but not necessarily every single one of our institutions. Our functions are spirituality, education, culture, human services. Our assets are the resources, like the people and the talent, the ideas and the buildings that enable us to deliver these functions. And we can't focus on preserving every single institution. We're not going to be able to do that. But if we leverage the very best of our assets and make the most of what we have, we can really emerge a lot stronger as a community. And I think we all need to be asking ourselves right now, what functions, services, what content do our constituents really want and really need? And how can we deliver them in new and relevant and more sustainable ways so that we emerge much stronger in the future?
So we all are engaged in institutions, and this Jewish world was built on institutions. But you've all kind of talked about something which is about, frankly, who the audience is, who's our consumers, how do we define what it means to be Jewish in the new world that we're going to be living in? How do we do that pivot? Paula, you alluded to, obviously, Jews of color, and we have all been talking for too long about how we become a more open community. And I think this is a moment for us to become more open.
Well, it is a moment. We've been marching toward this moment for a very long time. And I think because of what has happened this summer with George Floyd, because of COVID, we we finally realizing that what has been talked about, what has been said is true, that Jews of color and Jews who identify as non-Ashkenazi Jews are a large and growing part of the Jewish population. And if we don't recognize it, embrace it, and welcome it, then we as a Jewish people run the risk of just not preserving who we are, what we stand for. And there are any number of organizations, and I'll just name a few: the Jews of Color Field Building Initiative, Dimensions, the Weinberg Foundation, on whose board I sit, has made a conscious and deliberate effort and commitment to learn where Jews of color are, because often we are not included in everyday Jewish life. Not because we don't want to be, it's because often Jews of color don't feel welcomed in the spaces. So it is up to those of us who are active, who have networks, to be sure to reach in, reach out, and embrace, and bring the circle, bring us all under the tent, into the tent, to make a stronger, more vibrant, more inclusive, and loving Jewish community.
I'm also going to push on Rabbi Cosgrove a little bit, because a lot of what we see ourselves as Jews is institutional Jews and denominationally defined Jews. Do you see this is an opportunity for us to try to find new ways to define our engagement and affiliation?
Yeah, Jay, I don't think that the drivers of Jewish identity of 100 years ago or the last 100 years are going to be the drivers of Jewish identity for the next 100 years. So to answer your question directly, the choice of am I joining a Reform, conservative, Orthodox synagogue? I think that toothpaste has been out of the tube for a while right now. I think as my co-panelists have said, this has just accelerated or disrupted that life to the point that now we're all facing up to the realities. I think, look, at the end of the day, I'm a synagogue guy. It's in my wiring. So I think that Jews and all human beings have certain existential questions about meaning that aren't going away. I think that as long as human beings are human beings, we're going to be socially inclined. We want community. Amazing as this moment has been in terms of a virtual reality, as evidenced by the GA, I think people like being with people. And I think the moment we can be, we're going to come back into community formation and public assembly.
Good. Well, I'm going to turn to my optimistic friend, Lisa. I am enormously optimistic about the future. I just wish that we could be hugging each other and we could all be in the same room right now. I'm sure everybody that's participating in the GA wishes they were bumping into people in the hallways. Lisa, let's talk about hope. Let's talk about light. You have been, a major motivator of the innovation space and new organizations. What are you seeing that should give everybody listening to this the same kind of optimism that I'm living my life with right now?
I'm seeing incredible innovation, incredible agility. I'm seeing people coming together and crossing boundaries, as we've heard. And thankfully, and Paula, thank you for your leadership on these issues. And we are full partners with the Weinberg Foundation, with the Jews of Color Initiative, and with other initiatives that lift up the amazing richness and diversity of the Jewish community. That people are recognizing, because of what's going on in this country and around the world, that we must be more inclusive, we must be more diverse, we must celebrate the multiracial, multi-ethnic reality that we have. And I feel like there's been a lot of education, awareness raising, and there's been the creation of rock star leaders, of incredible content, of bringing in people who were never involved or have been lapsed for a long time and who are getting engaged in what was some of the best high holidays opportunities and options that we've ever seen. So I'm extremely optimistic about the Jewish future, but it's going to take us being proactive about shaping what we want it to look like, about being more open, inclusive, about including more diverse voices and making sure that every single person who wants to be part of the Jewish people feels welcome, feels safe, feels respected and treated fairly. And here I really want to lift up women's leadership. It is not a coincidence that during this COVID crisis, the countries that have done the best job fighting COVID are mostly led by women. We see the good that can happen when women are in leadership roles and everyone benefits. And I believe that we need to elevate more women into leadership now and on the other side of this crisis so that we can benefit from the full talents of everyone in the Jewish community, and that we end on the other side of this a much more dynamic, thriving, and equitable place for all of us.
Great. Well, I think I have time for one quick answer to one quick question. In 5 years, when I bump into you in the street, after we give each other a real big hug, tell me what you think the Jewish community is really going to have benefited from coming out of this pandemic.
What I hope that comes out of this crisis, the learnings that we took seriously, that this just isn't a moment where we're talking, that we are taking action, and that the actions we're taking will have lasting effects. And so that's what I hope when I'm hugging you on the street 5 years from now, that we're able to say, we weren't just talking. Look, it's working.
Lisa?
I'm envisioning a community that is more dynamic, more respectful of each other, less polarized, and much more creative, where all kinds of Jews from all different backgrounds can see themselves reflected in leadership and community, have a role in shaping community, and that we are living out our purpose as a Jewish people, which is ensuring that everyone is treated with dignity and respect, both within our community and outside, that we are pursuing justice and good in the world and making the world a better place. That's what we're called to do. And I hope that we are going to not do business as usual, but we're going to commit to moving to a better era where we all respect each other and we all help each other thrive as Jews and as people.
Thank you. Rabbi Cosgrove, you get the last word.
I hope that we can all look back on this moment, that though none of us would have chosen it, it reminded us all of what's really important in life. And that goes for our families, obviously that goes for ourselves, and in the Jewish community, for all of us, that it's prompted us, I hope in retrospect, to be less about turf, less about ego, less about bluff, and that it's prompted us to be far more intentional to achieve the dreams that really matter.
I want to thank my three colleagues for this very important and insightful conversation. And I want to thank all of you for joining us. I hope that this conversation continues in your communities, in small rooms and big rooms. That's the way we're going to assure that there is real light coming out of this darkness, and how our Jewish community comes out stronger and more exciting than ever before. Thank you.
And now, the chairman of the executive of the Jewish Agency for Israel, Isaac Herzog, and world-renowned musician, Idan Reichel.
Shalom from Israel. It is a great pleasure to be with all of you today as part of this important Jewish Together plenary. And I'm especially excited with this immense honor to be here in a conversation with a great Israeli singer, songwriter, and musician, Idan Reichel. Idan is considered to be one of the most prominent and successful musical artists in Israel and around the world. And you may recall vividly What a great show he did with the Jewish Agency at the beginning of COVID. Welcome, Idan, and it's a great pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you, Mr. Herzog. Thank you, Federation Together.
Well, you can call me Bougie. Friends call me Bougie. The thousands of people, or tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands who are watching us today are all part of our nation out there in North America. Listen, Idan, speaking about diversity, you have been termed as the ambassador of hope when you've dealt with a multitude of cultures brought in together into your work. When you set out on the project, was that your vision, meaning to cross barriers between various groups and peoples?
I remembered two main things that I think it was the first crossroad in my later on career. When I was walking in the streets of Tel Aviv right after the army, it was very interesting for me, almost weird. Why will keep listening only to American pop or European pop or Israeli music that is just influenced by those genres? But you never hear the voices of the street. We are such an amazing melting pot here, such an amazing multicultural nation. You walk in the streets of Tel Aviv and you can hear Amharic or Moroccan or Russian, but you never get to hear it on the mainstream radio. And I thought it will be a nice journey, nice experiment, just to bring together, to make all these musicians come together and to record what is home for them, to sing in their own native languages. Because I think that till today, what is Israeli? Israeli is not only someone that was born here. I think that Israeli is someone that remembers where they came from. And
this is fascinating, because the true problem is that from the outside, we're definitely viewed as a nation where people don't really want to listen to each other. And sometimes it's the same problem also in communities abroad, even in North America. But the truth of the matter is you've managed to bring rhythms, languages, all sorts of styles of music together in an extraordinary mixture, which makes it so successful. So what's the secret of success? What's the secret of your success when you want to deliver the message for people to listen to one another?
I cannot explain this magic that happened here. Just to explain how weird it is, the huge hug that we got from first of all from the media, and then from the audience, from the listeners and from the viewers. Just to compare it, imagine that there will be a musical project in New York, and there will be a singer singing in Cantonese from China, an accordion player from Italy, and another strings instruments from a musician from Azerbaijan. And let's say that they are recording some songs together, and suddenly it will beat the charts and will not be played only in world music niche radio station. Suddenly it will beat Beyonce and,
Right.
So
the most popular show.
Yeah, so the miracle and the big success, I would say, that we had is that it became the soundtrack of Israel in the past 15 years or so. That people, when they listen to the music of the Idan Reichel Project in New York or in India or in Japan, we're taking them to kind of a journey in our beautiful country for like 2 hours. And I think that this is what, for me, is a success.
Something which has been always striking in your appearances and in your music is the issue of the culture that emanates from the Ethiopian Aliyah, from the Jews of Ethiopia, which is something really extraordinary. I find myself dealing with it day in, day out as the chairman of the Jewish Agency. Now there's a new government decision in Israel to bring a few thousands of Olim again, which is again a beautiful, great challenge where our brothers and sisters from around the world are called to mobilize to this great cause. How were you attracted to Ethiopian music, to the Ethiopian Jewish music and to Ethiopian music? How did it impact you?
I remember being a counselor in a boarding school right after the army. And I had two main groups of youth groups. One is group from youngsters from former USSR, that they were very proud of their roots. They were listening to Russian pop, and they were keeping their own names, Vladimir, Natasha. And there was another group of immigrants from Ethiopia. And you could see some identity problems there. They were listening only to American hip hop. They had kind of nicknames, Jamaican nicknames or Afro-American nicknames. But there was one student, let's call him Jay. I cannot say his name, and I'll explain why. He was listening to loud Amharic villages songs. And he was keeping his own name, roots. He was very proud of where he came from. He was getting up every morning 6 a.m., running and circling the whole boarding school. And he was, a year after, he was the first one to pass the auditions, to be accepted to the Navy SEALs, the
which is one of the most elite units of the State of Israel.
And it immediately, I was very proud of him. And it reminded me the sentence of know where you came from. Exactly.
Know where you came from or where you're heading to.
Exactly.
A big motto that I believe in too.
And the reason that he was the first one, because he really remembered his roots. And I saw it as a challenge. I thought to myself, I want one day in the 2 p.m. in the radio stations, mainstream, that suddenly you'll turn on the radio and you will hear Amharic. And you will hear Nanu Nanu Ne in the middle of the day. But not only in a niche program. And I think that once Bowie, our first single of the Daraicha project, that was mainly, the album was influenced by the Amharic influences. It made all of them, all the students, very proud. I think that this was one of the challenges.
We are watching, what really moved me this year, as we are facing a huge wave of Aliyah to Israel, was to receive Olim from Ethiopia side by side with the Minister for Absorption, Pnina Tamano-Shata, who came at the age of 4 from Ethiopia, when my father was then president, receiving them in the airport. And I'm saying to myself, this is the real epitomization of Zionism and the greatness of the State of Israel. Yeah. So let's switch to the era we're at now, which is, of course, the challenging era of COVID. But what's your advice in the loneliness of being locked down and prevented from flying, traveling, walking, seeing the grandchildren, or just going to work? What's your advice as a musician and as somebody who impacts people?
Just to change the preferences, just to change the mindset. We are together, and I think that a broadcast like this is we are blessed to sit here and to talk to millions of viewers, and it's time just to do it a bit different.
Yes. This time we're doing it to our brothers and sisters at the Jewish Federations of North America.
Yeah.
And it is a great honor and pleasure.
Thank you so much to our panelists for leaving us with so much to think about as we consider how we can support and participate in leading our Jewish community forward in the days and years ahead. And thank you to all of our presenters and performers throughout this Jewish Together plenary. I hope you have found it as energizing as I have. We will close this experience with another big treat as Idan Reichel performs 2 of his beautiful songs. So thank you again for joining us today. And thank you for being part of our strong and thriving Jewish community. To me, Jewish Together means that whatever the road ahead has in store, I know that we will continue to rise and raise each other up together. Idan, over to you.
Thank you, Julie. It has been an honor to be part of this special gathering. I wanted to say that when I think about being Jewish together, I think of this song.
שנה במכונית אני נוסע ומביט על מה היה ומה נהיה, איך נפשי עוד דומיה המצדה של הזריחות, ירושלים בסליחות, בחוף כינרת ואחזי מהמסיבות של תל אביב. אבי חלם והתפלל שתעבור הקורונה מישראל, היום ילדי אותי שואל מה הסיפור של ישראל. כאן זה בית, כאן זה לב, ואותך אני לא עוזב. אבותינו שורשים ואנחנו הפרחים המנגינות, שבט אחים ואחיות. שכונה אותו רחוב, את הסרבנים של יעקב, אוספים ביחד נדודים בתוך תרמיל געגועים. אדם הוא נוף מולדתו, חורת קווים בכף ידו, בין התפילות לנדרים ריחות פרדס של הדרים, ובעיניה של אמי תמיד אמצא את מקומי, על הגיטרה מתנגן לונטיק שמכוון. כאן זה בית, כאן זה לב, ואותך אני לא עוזב. אבותינו שורשים ואנחנו הפרחים המנגינות, שבט אחים ואחיות. כאן זה לב ואותך אני לא עוזב. אבותינו שורשים ואנחנו הפרחים המנגינות, שבט אחים ואחיות. מבראשית הכל תפור, טלאים טלאים של הסיפור, בו שתי מילים להתחבר בחוט זהב של משורר. אני מכאן, אני שייך בכל חבר שלי כמו אח, אתה פועמת בלבבי, אני מזרח מערבי. כאן זה בית, כאן זה לב, ואותך אני לא עוזב. אבותינו שורשים ואנחנו הפרחים המנגינות, שבט אחים ואחיות. כאן זה לב ואותך אני לא עוזב. אבותינו שורשים ואנחנו הפרחים המנגינות, שבט אחים ואחיות, שבט אחים ואחיות, שבט אחים ואחיות.
I wish to dedicate the next song to all of you. And to my fans around the world, I invite you to sing along with me. Maybe video yourself and tag me and the Federation. And for those of you listening to these songs for the first time, just enjoy it. And I wanted to say that I'm looking forward for next year to sing along with you when we all gonna meet together somewhere in the world. ממעמקים קראתי אלייך, בואי אליי, בשובך יחזור שוב האור בעיניי. לא גמור, לא עוזב המגע בידייך, שיבוא ויעיר לנשמע קול צחוקך. ממעמקים קראתי אלייך, בואי אליי, מול ירח מאיר את דרכך שוב אליי. נפרסו ונמסו מול מגע של ידייך, באוזנייך לוחש שואל, מי זה קורא לך הלילה, הקשיבי, מי שר בקול אלייך אל חלונך, מי שם נפשו שתהי מאושרת, מי ישים יד ויבנה את ביתך, מי ייתן חייו ישימה מתחתייך, מי כעפר לרגלייך יחיה, מי אוהבך עוד מכל אוהבייך, מי מכל רוח רעה יצילך ממעמקים. ממעמקים קראתי אלייך, בואי אליי, מול ירח מאיר את דרכך שוב אליי. נפרסו ונמסו מול מגע של ידייך, באוזנייך לוחש שואל, מי זה קורא לך הלילה, הקשיבי, מי שר בקול אלייך אל חלונך, מי שם נפשו שתהי מאושרת, מי ישים יד ויבנה את ביתך, מי ייתן חייו ישימה מתחתייך, מי כעפר לרגלייך יחיה, מי יאהבך עוד מכל אוהבייך, מי מכל רוח רעה יצילך ממעמקים. מי אוהבך עוד מכל אוהבייך, מי מכל רוח רעה יצילך ממעמקים. Thank you and להתראות.
Thank you for joining us for Jewish Together. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day.